All right, buddy. Crossover Thursday here. Locked on Falcons and Locked on Saints, breaking down this New Orleans Saints hosting the Atlanta Falcons matchup. We're going to take a look at the things that the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints need to do to get a win, while the Falcons look to kind of push away that interim coach bump. As always, Crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, where you can use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL in all lowercase and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Aaron, what is it that the Atlanta Falcons need to do to avoid that interim coach bump that you have dug into and found that the Atlanta Falcons have not done so great, have not fared so great against in the past?
Well, I think the first thing the Falcons need to do is they need to stop the Saints on early downs. I think the second thing is get off to a fast start offensively. And then the third thing is not fall into the trap that comes with facing an interim head coach. And going back to that first thing, normally I would say you got to stop the run. But and that's a big part of the Saints' early down success. In their first 2 games of the season, I looked it up. They were number 1 in the NFL in expected points added per play on early downs, first and second down. Since then, the Saints are number 31, 31st. So they won the first 2 games. They were number 1. They've lost the last 7 games when they've been second to last. And so it's essentially, if you can stop the Saints on early downs, you can stop the Saints. And so again, stopping the run is a big part of that. And that's where you got to slow down Taysom Hill. You got to slow down Alvin Kamara. You got to have Troy Anderson in this lineup to help do that. And then getting to the second thing, which is going to help with that first thing, it's just getting off to a fast start offensively, right? The best run defense for the Falcons, who have not had a particularly good run defense this year, has been their offense. And you saw that the last couple of weeks when they've been able to get leads, and that forces opposing teams, that happened in the Tampa Bay game, happened in the Dallas game, to basically abandon the run at a certain point because they're playing catch up. And you saw this last week with the Falcons having 3 sacks, again, almost matching their season total of previously 6 sacks in their first 8 games of the season. And a lot of that was owed to the fact that they got an early lead, and their pass rushers were able to pin their ears back. They were able to run a lot of twists and stunts and games and all that various things and get after Dak Prescott and eventually Cooper Rush in that game. So if the offense can score points early, that's going to be not only a boost for the Falcons run defense, but also the Falcons pass rush. And then the third thing, don't fall into the trap. Now, Raheem Morris said there's no such thing as a trap game in the NFL earlier this week, because basically you have to be prepared each and every week. And he's right in that sense. But when I refer to the trap, I'm referring to the fact that the Saints have a new coaching staff, and that new coaching staff with Darren Rizzi getting rizzed up,
rizzed up, baby,
is going to, I have to say it because I've been pushing Kirk Vimber and Kirk Tober on everybody else. So, if you want to come up with your own hashtags or slogans, Ross, I will support you in that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
But, basically with the new coaching staff, there's going to be new energy in the building. And this is a golden opportunity, as we've been discussing, that they can throw some new wrinkles into things. Like, you can't just go into this game expecting, okay, we know what a Dennis Allen defense is. We've seen it for the last 7 years. We've seen, what a Clint Kubiak offense is, but now you have a different guy that can basically go to Clint Kubiak and say, okay, let's switch some things up, and you can catch the Falcons sleeping and thus have that sort of trap game.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Waterboy?
I have.
The commentators in the Bourbon Bowl where they're like, last game of the year, can't hold anything back now. Yeah. That's how I feel about the New Orleans Saints going into this game. They're that, right? It's the last game of the year. Can't hold anything back now. Might as well just throw it all out there and see what you got, right?
Yeah, so definitely.
I get the concern there in terms of where that comes from. I will say that when it comes to like limiting the early downs, that is key for dismantling the New Orleans Saints attack and Clint Kubiak's attack. If this team gets behind the sticks, they struggle. Plain and simple, right? They just struggle. I think the Los Angeles Chargers are the great blueprint for that. I think the Saints were like 13% on third down because so many of their third downs were 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 20, like all these other situations. And some of that was the Saints shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and stuff like that. They're fine in terms of the amount of penalties that they have. The issue is when the penalties take place and how the penalties end up killing their drives. So yeah, I think that's an astute observation. And then coupling that with fast starts obviously complicates things for New Orleans as well. For the Saints, I think the things that they need to do really come down to what they're doing to themselves in terms of avoiding like the self-inflicted wounds and things like that. So I do think that it's important for them to play fast and play free. And what I mean by that is not hamper themselves, not hold themselves back in this situation. They also need to be able to run and preferably do so with Taysom Hill, who had 2 touchdowns. He's kind of got to finish what he started in Atlanta. He's got to finish that job here in New Orleans. He had 2 touchdowns against Atlanta earlier this season. And then I think a big one is just showing up in the fourth quarter. The Saints have been in a lot of situations where they have had their defense on the field with a lead and have not been able to win that game. And the Saints need to get past that. And so I don't know if the Riz helps them do that, right? Gives them a little bit of that extra motivation, if you will, but they've got to get games closed out when they have the opportunity to do so. But I honestly think the most important one out of those 3, Aaron, comes down to Taysom Hill, because the Saints are simply going to need a counterpunch to who has been their most productive player, which has been Alvin Kamara. And Taysom is the most likely one to do it. He's the only non-new face that's involved in the consistent part of their passing attack. I think getting their tight ends involved would go a long way too, but that has been a struggle for this team on a consistent basis. So I think those are 3 things they got to do. I would love to see them play fast, play free, have fun again, especially in a rivalry game like this. But really, it's all going to come down to their ability to be able to close it out if they get into a situation where they're in a good scenario by the time the fourth quarter rolls around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you play the Falcons, there's a good chance you'll be in a good situation going into the fourth quarter, because pretty much all their games are
Any
one-possession games.
And any situation in the fourth quarter is a good situation against the Falcons, right? Isn't that what we've learned?
Something like that, right? They've been better this year, thanks to
That's true. That is true.
We're leaving the past behind. That's basically what
we'll see about that. Listen, I think the Saints, I think they kick this one off. And even if they don't win, they're massively competitive in this game in a way that nobody expects them to be. And then they probably come crashing down to earth after that. But I just think the emotional charge of this game with the new interim head coach, and the rivalry of it all is going to be enough to kind of give this team a jolt. My biggest concern is their wide receivers. Who are they throwing the football to and everything like that. And so unless Marquez Valdez-Scantling's about to go off, and Mason Tipton, their rookie wide receiver, undrafted guy, goes off and stuff like that, they don't have like familiar guys they can go to. So I think that's where it gets in trouble. But I think New Orleans is going to come in with a lot of charge, a lot of motivation, a lot of determination in this game, and at least keep it interesting.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I think, that's what gives me hope in the fourth quarter, is that if the Saints have to go down the field and put points, sure. Not having Chris Olave, not having Rashid Shaheed, we'll see if the Falcons can keep Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau in check and whatnot. But I think that's the one thing that gives me some hope, that if it does come down to a 1-possession game and the Falcons need to go down the field and score, they should be able to do it. And hopefully this Falcons defense will be able to prevent this version of the Saints offense from doing it in the closing minutes.